Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited for today's Meet the Designer. This is a series on my Let's Talk Design Teams podcast, and it's all about pulling back that veil of design teams, what they're all about, and not just from my own perspective, but I like to do this series to give everybody the perspective of other designers, not just myself. So I am really excited because our guest today is a good friend, Danny of Danny's Dreams. Danny, just to give some context and background, has been crafting for a very long time, and you'll know when she introduces herself just how long and how much experience she has. And that's just to say that she's just this is the episode to watch, because if you have questions about design teams, Danny, it's not to say that, anyone has a right or wrong answer, but Danny has seen it all probably. And so it's really great that she is here with us, and she's always been so open. And we will have video. I just want to give folks time to, as they're coming in, to get some context as to what we're doing today. And so I'm really excited. This is the very first Meet the Designer that we wanted to do in this series. And also Danny actually, with her support, was instrumental in starting Design Team 101, which is a Facebook community group that is just for us. It's for us designers to kind of help each other with the back end stuff. So let's not keep people waiting any longer. Hello and welcome, Danny! Yay!
Hey, hello, 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 everybody.
Hi, friend.
Hi.
I'm so excited. I forgot to hit the live button on Instagram, so now I'm streaming out to Instagram. Instagram folks, you kind of missed all that context. Um, but I'm so thrilled that, what's funny, because I think we started this series at the we were gonna do it at the beginning of this year. You were gonna be the first one this year. um and we fit it in, so that's good. We we still managed to do it this
Technology
year.
was not on my side. Yeah, technology wasn't on my side, but now I think I've got it figured it out. So,
Yay! So I'm super excited and so grateful that you've been actually in the chat for, I think, pretty much every Let's Talk Design Teams live stream that I've done.
sorry, there's a
And
cat walking through. So,
and you've always been so thoughtful in your feedback in the live chat. So it's great to have you here, sort of in person, and we can talk real time, because I know there's only so much you can type out.
yeah, and it's
So
hard sometimes to figure out what to say in a chat versus like just talking. So,
right, exactly. So I do want to give everybody, as you're coming in, thanks for saying hello in the chat. And I want to start this conversation with my standard disclaimer, which is that um, in order for us to talk openly about our design team experience, we need you to be understanding of the fact that we're going to talk with a little bit of ambiguity, because to join a design team, often there's NDAs. So our goal isn't really to name names and to talk about any specific company by name, or any specific, company owner or anything like that. But we also ask that please don't try to draw any of those conclusions, because obviously some of the teams that we designed for, and it's very human nature to try to, solve the puzzle and figure out, what we're trying to say. But really, a lot of our feedback, especially I would say in Danny's case, because she's been on so many design teams, it's probably a culmination of all of her experience as opposed to any one single particular team. But all the same, please don't try to like do the detectiving of figuring out what team she's talking about, because that makes it really hard for us to be as open about our experience. And we want to be open because one of the reasons why I started this series is when I started, and I'm kind of curious about Danny's experience, so we'll get into that. But when I started there, I didn't know anything about design teams, and I didn't know that there was a community to help with it either. So one of my goals was to actually, be support to folks who are out there wanting to learn more about design teams, wanting to get onto design teams. So that's my goal with this series. And so let's learn a little bit about Danny. Danny, do you want to introduce yourself just to get us rolling? I know you know the questions ahead, but just to give some folks an idea for who you are in case they don't know you already, which how could they not? But let's.
So I'm Danny, and I'm Danny's Dreams across all the socials. Um, I've been around the crafty world a very long time, like Lynn said. I wrote it down. Let me find it here. I started like applying and getting on design teams in 2008. I started blogging, like really being in the craft world, like in 2007. So I have been around a long time. To put a little bit in perspective, I have been either like a full-time design team member, a guest designer, or something on over 50 teams in my crafty journey, I guess you could say. And I was looking at the list because I've kept a list, and so many of the companies are not even around anymore. So I survived the companies. I don't know.
Yay! Well, that's an interesting topic to dive into as well. We're gonna get there, but that's pretty amazing, everybody. So just so that you all know, and there's gonna be there's gonna be a set of questions, so everybody will have a chance to really understand more Danny's history. But um, let's dive in. We'll start with the first question just to get us rolling here. Um, Okay, so take us in the Wayback Machine. How did you get started in paper crafting? So, what was it for you that got you into paper crafting?
So it actually started, goodness, long time ago. I worked at a camera store in a little town in Iowa, and my job was to run the machine that printed the pictures. And my boss was always very modern, I guess, trying to do all the different things. And scrapbooking was just coming around. So he asked me and one of the other employees to start teaching scrapbooking. So I did that. And if you know anything about me, you know I'm very full set syndrome, got to have it all. And I dived in full, full in there. So I did that. And then I met my husband, and our first duty station was Germany. So it was a little bit different, like scrapbooking there, whatever. And I kept seeing all these little wooden stamps at the PX. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get into stamping. I know that I will be obsessed. Not going to do it. Nope. Mm-mm. And then we moved. Let's see, we were in Kansas, and my daughter had just been born. She will, let's see, she's 20 years old now. She had just been born, and I went to my first like stamp party, I guess you call it. And it was for a company that's no longer around called the Angel Company, or TAC for short. And I was hooked, just like I knew it would be. So I signed up then and there to sell it, and the rest is kind of history.
So, when you say a stamp party, is that like, how Tupperware does Tupperware parties? Is it like that?
Yes, it was very similar to that. It was kind of what like Stamping Up used to. I don't know if very many demos do it anymore, but you'd go to the person's house and they would, I don't even know if we made a card or if we just looked at the catalog. I don't even remember, so long ago. But um, I think what drew me in and still drives me in, or draws me in, is coloring. I absolutely love coloring. So that was it. And I, just like I predicted, I was addicted.
Um, so that's so interesting because I don't think I didn't know the world of stamps back then. So was that the way to get stamps, or was it not as prevalent as an online shopping experience as it is now?
Um, I don't I was trying to think of that this morning, and I just honestly don't know. I do remember that all of my earlier stamps were all either the Angel Company, Stamping Up, and my first like non TAC or Stamping Up were Stamping Bellas. And I think that was the first time I actually bought like online. And then online just, phew, if you've seen my craft room tours, yeah, the whole world exploded. But yeah,
Oh, that's funny. Don says, very nice, Danny. I've been around that long. I probably knew you before I knew who you were. That's
probably.
awesome. Lots of support also for full set syndrome. Those similarly afflicted with full set syndrome, you've got a support group here. There's no judgment. um, oh, interesting. Amy says that's how I started, but mine was with Close to My Heart. Right, right. They're
Yeah,
sort of a similar model as Stampin' Up too, where it
yes.
was more like you had to know somebody, right, who was selling it
Right.
and then
Yeah.
order through that person.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Um, wow, stamp companies have come a long ways, right? Because I feel like that model is not as prevalent anymore. I mean, Stamping Up clearly still does it that way, I think, right?
Yeah, they still do, but they've also, I mean, their demonstrators now have websites and stuff. I don't think it's as much of the in-home stuff. I mean, there might be, I don't know. I tried to still Stamping Up 4 or 5 times and I decided I'm just not meant to sell. I just like to buy.
Yeah, right there with you. Amy said, yeah, so you sponsored a party. Oh, is that how it works? Okay, you sponsor a party, and based on the sales that you're able to produce, like other people buying through you, you get free product.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was
But
free
I was,
product involved.
yeah, I was the only customer that, well, I'm sure I had some friends that bought, but yeah, I always bought enough that I got the free stuff. So was it really free? I don't know.
It was free extra stuff. It
Yeah.
counts, I think. Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's good to know. Alicia says when Danny started at the job we both worked at, her name seemed very familiar. We then discovered each other's love to make cards. And I probably knew. Oh, you did Split Coaster Stampers. Were you a blogger for them?
I still, oh no, I just uploaded my stuff and I was on their Dirty Dozen team for one term. I don't know. I still upload there. I don't know. Habits die hard, but yeah, I do
Oh,
know some people from there.
that's awesome. Kim says we are always our best customers.
Yes.
Oh, but Carmen says not necessarily free, but it was discounted.
Oh, back in the day,
Okay.
it was free
Oh, so maybe these days
for
it's
some
changed a
companies.
little.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so that's cool because I actually I used to work at a photo like one of those 1 hour photo mats also, but they didn't clue into scrapbooking. But then I guess it was like in the 2000s, 2010. Let me think. I don't really know what year it was.
And mine
Oh, it
had to
must.
have been like 97, 98, probably 1997, 98.
Yeah, I think mine was. I think I worked at a 1 hour place in 99 or 2000. Maybe they just weren't hip to scrapbooking as a thing. They
Maybe.
just
And
kind of
like our
missed.
store was more than just the photos, so like we sold the cameras and the photo frames and everything. So maybe because like a bigger store.
Yeah. Um, Linda says I never went to a stamp party until I sold them for. Oh, Fun Stamper's Journey operated that way too?
Yeah.
I had no idea. So much I don't know. Oh, by the way, oh, yeah, I should have said this at the beginning. Hey, folks, like this stream and definitely share it out because if you know anyone who is like even curious, interested about design teams and or a fan of Danny's, let's get this stream out there so that they can find us and learn more from her directly. So so that's awesome to kind of see how you did you ever do scrapbooking much? Like,
Oh,
did you
yes.
do a ton
Like
of
I
it?
said, oh yeah, like, yeah, you could say that. If, like when I was working at the camera store, I was also doing photography on the side. I did
Oh, okay.
portraits, weddings, nature photography. I
Wow.
sponsored a race car, so I did race cars. I did a little bit of everything. And so picture taking is kind of my thing as well. And so, yes, I have lots of scrapbooks done, but then I tried to do it after I got into card making, and it's just not that instant gratification that a card is. So I kind of stopped. So
Yeah, that was gonna be my follow-up. Do you still do any of that?
I've tried to go back, but I just can't.
Yeah. It's hard when you're used to like being able to finish a project in, a decent amount of time where it feels like a scrapbook is a long journey. Like there's a lot of pages.
Well, it is, and I am my worst critic, and I would like think that my pages were too bland and finally I was like, no, they're for me. And then I'd go back and forth, and it was an agonizing process for me. So I just was like, no, nope.
Um, well, that's interesting because so many people have started in scrapbooking. So kind of cool to know that that's sort of where you started, like photography and then into scrapbooking. I would say my journey was sort of similar, but I never really did a ton of scrapbooking though. So, how would you describe your style of card making, we'll say? And kind of as a follow-up to that, has it changed over the years because you have been card making for so long? So, because you did say in the beginning you did love to color, and that seems to still be true.
Yeah. I always hate this question because I don't know. Sometimes I think it's like there appears to have been a struggle. I don't know what to describe it, but I lean towards clean and simple, but I do like to color. I like the images to kind of shine, but I do like layers. I like pattern paper. I'm kind of all over the place. I'd say the only style that I don't really do well, the couple that I'm not mixed media is really hard for me because I like things to be like all perfect, I guess. Not really perfect, but I don't know what the word to say, but I like everything all lined up in their places. And then like shabby chic, I think it is. I struggle with that too. But yeah, I'm just kind of all over the place, I think, but more towards the clean and simple.
Wow, a lot of folks got into scrapbooking through Creative Memories. I Another company I haven't heard
Oh,
of.
yeah.
Have you heard of them?
Oh, yeah. I have quite a few of their products still. Yes.
Carmen says, I agree with you, Danny. That is a hard question to answer. Yeah, on our style. Um, I mean, I don't think everybody has to do everything, so it's okay if I'm kind of like you. I just like to dip my toe in different areas, but I wouldn't say that I'm like good at any of those things. Um, but it's nice to just not always be sticking in your lane. So,
That's true.
do you feel like your style has changed over time?
Yes, I kind of back in the scrapbooking days, there's what we would call a sticker sneeze, where they just look like you just threw stickers on and there was no like rhyme or reason. Looking at some of my earlier cards, I did color, but it was with pencils and it was no shading and oh my goodness. But anyways, and it just seems like I just would color an image and I'd cut it out and I just throw it on some pattern paper. There wasn't like I don't know, it just didn't flow like I think my cards do now.
Yeah, yeah. And like how Do you think that your style has changed just as a result of uh more experience in doing it more, or like how much of other content creators do you like consume, in the sense of like, do you go to Pinterest and look for inspiration? Do you go to Instagram and look for inspiration, or YouTube, or do you just kind of do your own thing and try not to be influenced by too many other people?
Oh no, I absorb everything. I've always been attracted to sketches, so I do love sketches. My Pinterest, for whatever reason, out of all the social media, because I used to do blogs, which I know we'll get to eventually, but I would go to Pinterest and I would pin things, and I have like over 40,000 followers, which I'm like, what? But I
That's
did, I've kind,
awesome.
but I've kind of stopped. I don't know. It just, I don't know, we all change, I guess. But I do watch, there are some YouTubers that I watch pretty faithfully. Instagram's kind of hit and miss there, but I've always, I guess, aspired. But I'd have to say a lot of what I look at is coloring, alcohol marker coloring, because that is my passion. And so I'm always looking at how can I improve my own coloring. So,
Oh, awesome. Copy Crafter says she's a recovered sticker sneezer.
yes.
I That's the first I've heard the term. So you're introducing me
Yeah.
to so many things. Um, Pretty awesome. So that's just to give everybody a little bit of a background as to Danny as a crafter. Now let's learn a little bit about Danny as in terms of her design team experience. And so I always like to ask this question because it gives everybody watching, because I sort of alluded to this, but Danny counted it out and she knows the number exactly. How many different design teams have you been on, and how long have you been designing on DTs? This gives everybody in the chat, if you're watching this, whether you're watching live or in the replay, some context. So when Danny gives you kind of her experience, her opinions, you kind of know when you hear her answer what she's drawing on when when she is giving us these nuggets of wisdom. Hey, by the way, I forgot to mention YouTube has a feature where if you have a question for Danny, um, it's at the top of the chat box, right, Danny? I think at the top of the
Yeah.
live chat,
Yeah. Make sure
you'll
you're on
see.
live chat.
Right. That's right. So, because on the phone, you kind of you might have to swipe to see live chat instead of comments. And then in there, you should be able to see at the top, drop your questions for Danny here. And if you put your questions there, I can more easily see them because they get kind of pulled out into a separate spot. And if you have questions for Danny or for myself, just drop them there, and I'll make sure that we get those in front of Danny. Um, so Danny, tell us, how many design teams?
Do I have to know? So I started on design teams in 2008, between a mix of full-time design team member, guest design team member. I have been on over 50 teams. I didn't really count like the exact number because there's a few coming up but that haven't been announced and stuff. But yeah, I've been on over 50 teams. And I've also, to put it in perspective, I've been kind of on the other side of it because I did have a challenge called Flutter by Wednesdays that I ran for several years that was very successful. I had lots of design team members and stuff. And then more recently, I had a Facebook challenge group called There's a Stamp for That. So I've kind of been on both sides a little bit.
Yeah, so
So
folks, that was 50, not 15. So, FYI, 50 design teams. Okay, so Carmen actually started the chat off. By the way, thank you, Carmen. She was wondering, is there like, would you class a collaboration group as a design team? Do you feel like
I
there's a
saw her
difference?
question, and I think that they're all kind of design teams. Just the terminology has kind of changed, just like everything else has changed in the crafty, stampy world too. So
Yeah. So, I mean, that's phenomenal, that you've been on so many teams. And I think you mentioned this, was it before we started? That
it
a
was
lot of the
before we started.
companies, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of the companies are not even in business anymore.
yeah, which is kind of wild. But it just goes to show that, designers are here to stay. I mean, if you just look at 2024, how many closures there have been. Um,
Well, and it's interesting because um, for a design team, even like when I first started, there's always been like the popular people that always seem to get on them. But a lot of those have changed so much. You know, some of them have gotten out of it, out of crafting. I cringe at the people that I see that are getting rid of all of their stuff. And so it all kind of changes companies, designers, everything.
yeah. Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into that because I feel like you offer a perspective that is unique because you've seen the changing tides, kind of. And I know we're gonna touch on a little bit of it, but I'm kind of fascinated with if we again just dive back into the Wayback Machine, um, can you tell us a little bit about why why you decided to join design teams? Like, how did you know about them? Like, and why, what made you decide to apply if that was the process then?
You know, I was trying to think back because I knew this was coming. And I honestly don't really remember, but I know blogs because we did a lot of blogs and there were like message boards, but they were different than like there because there wasn't the social media. So there was like message boards and like sites that were like group sites kind of that we went to, but I feel it was mainly blogs. So
Okay.
like you would stumble like if you was like the Stamping Bella was like my first online not TAC or Stamping Up purchase. And so like that kind of led to a rabbit hole. Like you'd go to their designers blogs and maybe they were on someone else's team, and so you'd find those companies blogs, and I feel that that's when they would put out the design team calls, I
Okay.
think.
So when you were first getting started, were there crafty, how big was Facebook?
Facebook wasn't around.
Okay, okay. So, wow, things have
There's no
changed a
social
lot
media.
then.
Yes, there was no social media other than blogs. And like I said, like those few crafty groups kind of. So it was an entire, that's why I think sometimes I struggle with it now because there's so much to do when it used to just be write a blog post and you'd be done. So
Right. So that's kind of interesting how, I mean, it hasn't been that long of a span of time, but it feels like you're describing like a very different world of designing for a team.
it
Yeah.
was. And like, I think my first team, let me go look, was no, my second team was the first like digital stamp when it was starting, they were starting to do those. And it, I, we all fought it tooth and nail. There's still some people that don't like digital stamps. I like them, but you know, it just, there's been a lot of changes. Oh, I just saw that Dawn said she started in Yahoo groups, and I think that that might
Yeah.
have been a thing. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
So, just to dig into that a little bit, do you feel like it's more work now then? Like, I know it's different now, but do you feel like it's more work than it used to be?
It is so much more work. I struggle a lot with it, but I've just kind of made peace. But yeah, like even I was trying to think, like you would just see the design team call, and usually it was just send in some of your nicest work and stuff. And honestly, there was never any like agreements or contracts that there are now. and you would just sign up like to do X amount of blog posts or whatever. And now it just, I don't know. Yeah, there's so much more work.
Okay. And I think you kind of talked about this a little bit, but do you feel like the like it's more is competitive the right word? Like do you feel like there are more crafters uh who are sharing and like content creators in a way who are going for those design team spots? Is it more competitive in that way?
I don't know because we never really knew who was doing what. I mean, there was a lot of blogs. Like I remember I used to get hundreds and hundreds of comments on a blog post. So there was a lot of people
Mm,
out there. But now I feel like, because there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's YouTube. Um, like there's more ways to see more people. So possibly there's more. I don't really know.
yeah. Yeah, because part of me feels like because and yeah, like you said, there's really no way to know for sure. Only because like now it might feel like there's more, but probably because it's just more visible these days where blogs maybe you couldn't tell like if somebody was reading, a blog post whether they were actually I don't think people shared casually the way they do now because there are a lot of people who share their makes, not
No, and that's
necessarily.
been kind of, yeah, because it is like you can just take a picture and put it up there, whereas before that wasn't really a thing. So,
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it. And so maybe like even though there might have been just as many crafters, they just maybe weren't because they don't have like an outlet, an easy outlet for sharing. And so that's one of the
right.
things that I kind of think is nice. We get to see a lot more inspiration. So that's really cool. So was getting free product a thing in those early
I
days?
mean, you got free product, but I don't think that wasn't why I signed up. I know that, or why I wanted
Okay.
to join it. I think it was just, I don't know, maybe to be recognized more. But then once,
Mhm.
I will say, after I realized that you could get free product, I'll admit, like in those early days, I was a very bad design team member because I would take more than what I created with. And I know that that's, kind of probably put a little black mark on me for some companies or whatever, but I didn't know. I've
Oh,
learned a
yeah.
lot through the years. I know that I wasn't professional on some teams. I know I left a couple after just a day. I was younger and hot-headed, and so I remember one team, I we were doing a hop, which I hops or something else, but it was a blog hop, and they told me that I had to fix my blog post because it directed people, like it would open a new window instead of just going to the next blog. And I was like, that's stupid. So I left the team. So I mean, I've been a bad design team member. I feel I've learned and I'm a good design team member now. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have to have those experiences, and it's not always bad though to stand up kind of for what you think is right and what you're willing to do. Everybody has to have their own line and their own limits, right? And if
Right.
it was something you weren't willing to do, then that's okay.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, we didn't really have like contracts or agreements or anything. So I feel like people left a lot more easily or whatever than nowadays, maybe. So,
Well, yeah, I kind of feel like you're right about that just because um it feels very formal and you got to sign a thing and there's always like kind of legalese sounding things in the thing that you're signing. So it very much so feels like a very formal process joining a team these days. Um but I do so just to kind of follow up a little bit on that because you know you've said that kind of as a design team member you're a better team member these days. How did you learn to be? Like was that just through experience being on so many teams, or just maturity, like, growing up, if you were saying that you were young and hot-headed at one point.
Probably a mixture of both. Um, I don't think I really started realizing, well, I don't, yeah, probably just both. More mature, learning, things, and um, yeah, just learning from all the different teams. I have to say my hardest, like biggest struggle is that I have to remember everyone's not me. I'm very organized and very detailed, and like I have a planner, I have everything already planned out all the way through January, and it's really hard for me to accept that everyone's not me.
Yeah. Did you find that your fellow teammates were a source of help in, I don't know, just like learning what it meant to be on a design team, or maybe your design team managers, like did they help you or give feedback as to,
It's one of those things because we didn't really have the social media. Um, I can't even remember how I think we just corresponded through email. So you didn't really get to know your design team member, like ones like you do now.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you could see their work and kind of read their blog posts and kind of get a feel for them. But like email, you can only get so far.
right,
So it was really different. Nowadays, I feel there's a lot more communication, which helps and stuff. So
yeah. Okay. That's cool because it does, well, I still feel there are some teams that are not, every team dynamic is different. I mean, there's still some teams even with like the Facebook group and everything that are very, everybody just does their thing and there's really not a lot of chit chat.
yeah, every team is very different.
um so if you're looking back at your design team experience, what would you say is your favorite thing about being on a design team, but something that maybe you didn't expect to get from that experience?
Um, Probably that it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. Like I don't know that I would do a lot of the things that I've done in crafting without that push from design teams, whether it be working with different products, different dyes, different mediums, whatever. I think it's just that little push to go just a little bit outside your comfort zone.
Okay. And is that more because of the products that you're getting and required to use, or is that just because you're crafting so much it gets boring to do the same thing over and over, so you want to do something different?
A lot of it, I think, started with the products that I was getting. I was on a team way back in the day that was trying to launch more into mixed media. And I did get a lot of different things from that. And so it was fun to try. I struggled greatly with it, but it was fun to try. And then, because a lot of things I'd look at them like, I don't need that. I'm not going to buy that. But then if they were given to me and I tried, I'm like, oh, let me buy more. Okay.
Yeah. So so then I'm kind of curious. Gonna throw you a question that's actually not in our pre-planned list. But these days, how are you picking which teams you go out for? Like, what are the things you're looking for now that you're, kind of more veteran, more experienced, you kind of know, like, are you looking for things that continue to stretch you as a crafter, or are you more just focused now because you know what you like and trying to get onto teams that are gonna feed into that?
I nowadays I'm a lot pickier at what teams I either try to get on or accept offers from. I have to really, really, really love the products. I used to just do like if I got an offer, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I have to really just love the product because, like I said, I get obsessed. And so if I'm on a team, I try to go above and beyond these days. And so I really want to know that I'm going to like the products that I'm going to be working with. And I don't try out for very many teams anymore. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
That's awesome. Well, and I'm sure that a lot of people come to you as well, because you're you and you're awesome. So,
I've been
um,
very surprised because Instagram is kind of my nemesis because I get obsessed with the numbers of followers, which I shouldn't, but I do. So, because I've been losing like hundreds of followers, which I know it's just algorithms and all that. So it's kind of my nemesis. But I'd have to say, like, I've gotten 4 or 5 offers for design teams off of Instagram. So I keep posting.
yeah. Well, and I definitely want to dive into like the impact of social media and all of that because it is constantly evolving and it's a part of so much of what we do now. Like you said before, it was much simpler, but these days there's more social, well, there is social media where there wasn't before. And and so there's a lot of things that, you know, you kind of have to play the game sort of to a degree, but is it a healthy mindset? You know, that's a good question.
Yeah.
um so on the flip side, if that was your favorite thing, like just, you know, being able to grow as a crafter and you know, stretch beyond, what has been your least favorite thing that you didn't expect out of your design team experience?
I'd have to say the teams that are not organized and not very communicative or they don't communicate as well or whatever. Like I said, I'm a very organized person. I like to know what's coming. I probably ask way too many questions and stuff. So teams that are like crickets, I don't like, or if they're like throwing things at you last minute, I don't thrive in those situations. And some um, teams that I've been on have not been good for my emotional well-being, I guess we can put it that way. I have had a very, very traumatic experience with one of the teams I was on, and it still haunts me. And that was way early in my design team career, I guess you could say. So I've had some negatives, but I try to focus on the positives.
Yeah. So I think it might surprise people to know that there's disorganization sometimes on some teams. So, um, so do you think that that's kind of the exception rather than the rule, or do you think that there's just too much structure and maybe, you know, some teams should, because there's the caveat of you could have everything really well planned out and as a company maybe have 3 releases planned, but then does that keep you agile and, you know, able to pick up on new trends? Or on the flip side, if you're always like kind of producing for the next month, like, you know, right as that's happening, it does put your team designers in a bit of a crunch, right? And
Right. And I feel it used to be a thing that it was probably more teams were disorganized than organized. Nowadays, the majority that I've been on have been pretty organized. And yeah, I could see that sometimes you might need to. I don't function well when it's not, so I avoid those teams. So I don't really know.
yeah. I mean, I feel like, and I'm curious to know if you feel the same way, but I kind of feel like what's hard about being a small craft company is that um it's not like you can invest in a ton of inventory 2, 3, 4 months out, and because you may not be around that, like it feels very precarious, as a small company, like how like month to month how
Yes,
stable things are. So,
I would
I don't
agree.
know.
I don't know how some of these small companies can do it. I'm not like I don't have the business mind to like it hurts my head to even think about how would you know how much to order? How would you know if people
Right.
are going to like it and stuff? Yeah.
Right. So it's like it's kind of risky um to plan like super duper far in advance for your business, at least to invest in actually ordering the product. Because obviously, as
Right.
designers, it is nice if we can get something like a month, 6 weeks before it releases and just, really have the time to noodle on what we want to make and, not feel stressed doing it. So, but that's definitely not always the case.
Yeah. No.
So Amy has a good question. She says, "Do you think there should be a limit on how many design teams one person should be on at a time?" Oh, so let me before you answer that, what's the most number of design teams you've ever been on at like a single period of time?
Let me look at my list. 'Cause oh, well, I have the years by them and stuff, so I can kind of tell. Oh, no, I can't. I want to say I've been on like 9, 10, maybe more teams at one time. But I also feel everybody is different. I was a stay-at-home mom. My kids knew that I liked to craft. They would play. I had a lot of time. Now I stay at home. It's just me and the cat most days, and I craft a lot. Whereas some other people might work, and so they wouldn't be able to handle that many teams. So that's really tricky. I know that there are some companies that put it in their design team calls, no more than 3 teams or whatever. But I really think it depends on the person.
Yeah. And I agree because everybody's capacity is going to be different. And to your point, I think being on a lot of teams can be a good thing when you're applying to other teams because then they kind of know, oh, this person knows what it means, hopefully, to be on a team if they've made it on so many. But it can
Right.
be a downside because, like you said, some don't want you splitting your attention um, between or time, I guess, because
Mhm.
everybody's time is finite, right? Even if whether
Right.
you're retired or not. And
I also think
so,
it depends on the number of projects for each team because some teams might only want like one project a month. Some might want 7. I mean, it just depends on how you can balance that out too.
yeah, and I feel like I feel like the teams that are more this is how I read between the lines of teams where they have a limit on how many other design teams you can be on. I think it might be because they're expecting a lot of deliverables and they know that they are.
Yeah,
And
that's
so, you know, um,
that's
that
fair.
could be.
Yeah.
So, because it's very different making like one thing or one video versus making one project for every single product that you get, and maybe you're getting the full release, which is a lot of
Right.
products.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's that can be a very very different thing. um so because you've had so much experience, we've kind of brushed into this a little bit, um but these days, now that you can be more discerning, how would you describe your ideal design
Very organized.
team?
Um, and very clear in what they expect. Like if they want 3 projects a month, great. But if they're like, oh, 3 or 4, or 5, I mean, I need it to be like finite. Um, Lots of communication and I guess friendly. I've been on some that have been not so friendly. So, and of course, I'd have to love the products, but yeah.
So, um, besides the very last one, how do you gauge those things before you actually join a team? Like, how do you know whether a team is going to be organized or friendly or, have good communication flow without being on it?
These days, I think you can kind of get a feel by like if they have a Facebook group, like do their design team members comment on your projects? Another way is maybe try to be a guest designer. That's a good way for both the company and yourself to feel out like how you'll mesh and things like that. Um, and ask questions. I don't know. Like I said, I'm probably drive all the design team leads crazy because I ask so many questions.
Well, I mean, you've led design teams and you've run your own team. So how do you when you wear that hat, how do you I mean, are you ever bugged by people asking a lot of questions?
No, no, I always encourage it
Yeah.
because I don't want there to be any kind of miscommunications or harbored bad feelings or anything like that. No, I'd rather they'd ask it than to hold it in.
So then would you say that if somebody was very curious about how well run, because I think that's the thing that I feel like I would be challenged by as well is, last minute things, changing, expectations on you, things like that. Like how does one avoid that? Like, is it kosher to ask questions of somebody who's currently on that team? Like, let's say you were offered or asked or something, could you ask like the team lead or maybe just somebody else who's on the team, hey, what is it like? Without
I have,
seeming.
yeah, I've kind of done that, I guess, in the last couple years, just because I do know so many crafters. Like if I've seen that they've been on a team, if I'm really interested, I might watch them a little bit more and see how it is. And if I feel really comfortable, I might reach out and say, "Hey, how was this team? Did you like it or not?" And
Mhm. Okay, so then it's okay. Like, would you advise somebody who who's
it's one
considering
of
a
those.
team, or
I
is
think
it
you
more
need to
like
kind of
because
have
you're
a.
friends? Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. I think you need to be more than just like, "Hey, I see you around" or something. I think you need to have interacted with them a little bit, kind of have a rapport before you're just like, "Hey, what's this team like?" or something like that.
Yeah. So another great question in from Amy. How do you become a guest designer? She says, I've seen design team calls, but not guest designer calls. That's a really good question, Amy. Danny?
I have seen guest designer calls, but the way that I don't remember back in the day, but a lot of times if I'm interested in a company, I will first share a lot of projects with that company, like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, make sure that they, I tag them and all that stuff. But then I usually reach out if I can find out who their like social or like their team lead is or whatever. I'll be like, hey, I was wondering if you have any design team spots open, or do you have any guest design team spots, things like that. Sometimes companies, if they do reach out to me and they offer me a design team spot, if I really am not feeling it, I might be like, hey, my plate's full, but I might like, do a guest design spot for you or something. So I think you kind of just have to put yourself out there sometimes.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think the best way is the first thing Danny said. Just share your makes because that's really the job of a design team member is to uh be social, put your work out there, share it to Instagram. Like, would you say Instagram, Facebook, how would you rate the two in terms of if somebody only had time for one social media platform, which one do you think would get them noticed?
If you want to get noticed and stuff, I would say Instagram. If you want more inspiration and maybe more interaction, I guess, I would say Facebook. So it's kind of whatever you're after more, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, if I were to answer that question, that if you're looking just to generally put yourself out there, probably Instagram. If you're very much targeting like a company to get onto like company XYZ's design team, I would go to their community group because most companies run their own community group.
Yes, definitely.
And yeah, share your makes with their products there because they're probably looking more closely, at everything that's coming through that community group, whereas your thing might not pop into their feed. Um, if just depending on the algorithm, that algorithm has a mind
Yeah,
of its own, really.
it
So
does.
so I mean, I guess the thing, well, let's do this next question. Then I think that'll be a good bridge into something else I want to pick your brain about. But what would be your number one advice for anybody thinking about joining a DT? Because I know that there's folks who are watching right now who might not have it as a goal to be on a team, but it sounds like from the poll that I have going that there are folks who aren't on teams but have some aspiration or desire to join one. So, what's your advice to those folks? Like, how does one get onto a design team?
Um, really take a look at your time, make sure you can fully commit to it. Um, really read what they are asking for. Um, learn how to take nice pictures because almost every team will require you to post pictures. Not saying you have to run out and buy all the equipment or anything. When I started, I had an light and a white piece of cardstock that I did, but know how to edit it so it looks nice. Um, and then realize that most teams are getting typically, I mean, it just depends the company or there's challenge blogs or whatever. They're getting a lot of applicants and they only have so many spots. So if you don't get accepted, don't take it personally. Even though that's so hard to do, I still probably take things a little personal, but I try not to. Just if it's something you really want, keep trying. I have tried out for one team probably 7, 8 times. May not have gotten on that team recently, but I mean, it's just if it's something you really want, put the work in. And also, I guess I should say now it's more of a thing. It didn't used to be, but when you apply for those, if they ask you certain questions, make sure you're doing them exactly like they ask and really try to sell yourself. I used to just put, oh, my name's Danny. I make cards. I like to color. Here's some work. Whereas now I'm like, I think that I can help your company by showcasing your images with my coloring or something like that.
Yeah. I yeah, I think in one of my live streams, that was one of my big uh tips as well. If you're when you're filling out a design team application, definitely fill it out the way answer their questions. And if they're specific with how they want things, like they want you to email them or they want you to do XYZ or put this in the subject line, do all of the things because they asked it for a reason. It makes their life easier. And I think at the end of the day, anyone who manages a team, they are looking for people who are low maintenance in the sense that they're gonna they're gonna make your life easier. So I do feel that that's a really good advice. Um
I like
yeah,
what
this
Yvette
is
said.
yeah. Think of it
Yeah,
as like a job interview and
exactly.
yeah. And I do feel that, to your point, um, any opportunity extra that you have, because a lot of design team applications, it's very like, just fill out like multiple choice, you know? But if you have an opportunity to like write something, you gotta make the most of that opportunity, and like Danny said, really sell yourself and your strengths. Um, and I'll be honest, being somebody who screens design team applications, we don't need your life history and like how how like through the years things have changed for you in crafting, because the reality is that like it's not really going to help inform whether you're going to make it onto the team or not. So think of it that way. So they might ask, tell us a little bit about yourself, but they're not really asking for your history. My guess is usually that's the case. It's more to give you an opportunity to sell them on why you should be on the team, and so you should take that opportunity. It's a little bit nice to, give them a little bit of personal information, but really, like, I've read some applications where it's like paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of just like their crafty history, which is like an interesting read, but it doesn't really, and I took the time to read it. I think a lot of people who are seeing that block of text might not even feel like it
Yeah,
warrants being read.
yeah, they probably
Just
wouldn't
being
want to
honest.
read it. So, yeah.
Right? Like if you're trying to screen for, a designer and you see this huge block of text, it's you may not have the time given how many other people have applied. So, yeah. So here's the thing though, Danny. Like our design teams, because there's a fair number of people here who are watching and who are interested, but it's not a goal of theirs to be on a design team. So our design teams really, cracked up to be like, given, you know, um what is involved these days, and maybe talk a little bit about what it means to be on a team these days, as compared to the blog days. And then, is it really all cracked up to be what it's maybe
You know,
people
it's
think?
it's one of those things I think about often, but I've done it so long, it's really hard for me to create. I mean, I can still do it, but like I like having the design teams kind of like keeps me crafty. Otherwise, I might not always feel like crafting, but it is my happy place. But um, it is so much work, so much work. Really, really think about it. And if it's not something you don't want to do, don't do it. Um, I am kind of, I mean, I'm still on teams, but I did my first craft fair and I loved it. And so now I want to focus more on that. All these years, I've focused on selling other people's companies, images, and stamps and stuff. But now I'm kind of focusing on me, which sounds really selfish, but it is what it is. And so I can see not adding a ton of more design teams or anything right now. It is so much more work. Like I said, it used to would write a blog, you throw up a picture, and you'd be done. And like you might have
Uh-oh. You just got muted, if you can still hear me. I think, is your mic? Yeah, we can't hear you. I think
me
oh,
now.
yes, yes.
Is that better? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. My phone's been weird. But anyways, it used to be you'd write a blog post, you throw a picture, you'd hop around and leave some comments for other design team members, and that was it. Now, which I think Lynn wanted to talk about this a little bit later, but I recently gave up my blog after doing it for 17 years. So that's been nice. But now, like you make the product or you make the project, most teams require you to share to like all the social media sites. So there's, Instagram and Facebook. Facebook, a lot of the teams I'm on, they want you to share in at least 5 different groups. Um, and
Yeah.
it just, and then like if you make videos too, then you make a video, you write that description. And then I always try to do a thank you if someone leaves a comment. So it can be hours and hours and hours of work.
Yeah, so well let's dive into that because I know that a lot of people have asked in previous videos in this series, like, do you have to have a blog? Um, are blogs, are they like the dinosaur of social media? Are they just, is it like, is there still a place for blogs? Is it required to be on the team? All of the things. Tell us about your blog journey.
So I did start blogging in 2007. I really enjoyed blogging when it started. Probably the last 2 or 3 years, I used Blogger, which was very easy format and everything. It started doing it to almost every crafty friend I know, where it would unpublish our posts saying we went against the community guidelines, and then it would reinstate them. I thought that it was because I had bad code or something on my blog, so I actually started a new one, did the same thing. It was very frustrating, so I finally just made the decision, especially with all the other things that you have to do now, that I didn't want to blog. I haven't really missed it at all. There's been things. I've read some comments from people, and some companies do still require a blog. A lot of the teams that I'm on do not require a blog, and one team even made a little exception that I could just post on Instagram and YouTube. Um, I guess it depends if you can get traffic to your blog. Back in the day, I had, like I said, there were times I had hundreds of comments. These days, like the new blog, I was getting maybe 25 people a week, whereas one video usually, even if it's not like a hop or something, gets at least 25 to 30. And then you get to Instagram, which gets 10, 15, Facebook, so I think if you can get traffic to a blog, they can be useful still, but it's just, how do you do that?
Right. And getting back to everybody's time being finite, like you kind of have to put your eggs where they're hatching. I don't know what the analogy is, but like,
Yeah,
you can only like put so much of your time in so many places, and you kind of have to invest it where it feels like it's paying off.
right.
Um, so do
I
you
guess
feel
that
like, were you monetizing your blog? Like, were you
that's what I was about
doing
ready to say.
affiliate?
It also depends on what you want, because I do know some crafters that have been around for probably as long as I have, that are very well established, and they do affiliates, and so it's working out great for them. I just started with affiliates maybe 2, 3 years ago, maybe. And I did get way more traffic on YouTube. So that's just where I did it. My blog, I didn't get hardly anything off of that. So, and to me, that's not what I'm doing it for. I mean, yeah, sure, it's nice to make the little bit of money. I'll still probably throw those links, but it's not my priority. So I guess that depends too, like if you want to do that more. But again, you have to find a way to get traffic to your blog.
Yeah, it existing doesn't
Mhm.
like doesn't mean that it's gonna do much for you just because it's there. You have to like actively drive traffic to it.
Well, and
Um,
even posting links to and stuff, people don't want to, or in my experience, people didn't want to go there.
yeah, I mean I think it's interesting, and with anything, especially if you're new to sharing on social media and creating content in this way, um, your following is going to be zero. Everybody starts at zero, and so you have to kind of attach yourself to things like hops, for example, because it forces people to kind of circulate and find you where they wouldn't otherwise. but yeah, it's tough to drive that traffic and yeah, there's a lot of comments about it sounding like design teams is like work.
It
Like,
kind of is.
yeah. Do you feel like being on a design team and having to do all those, because if you were just crafting, you wouldn't necessarily be like sharing to five different groups and making sure you're liking your teammates posts. You'll like what you like to see, but
Right.
a lot of times we want to support our team, right? So we want to make sure that we're also like, and if you're on a lot of teams, that's a lot of groups that you have to check.
I think
So
if I were working, there would be no way I could do it. But since I stay home and I am by myself because I'm a new empty nester, it works for me. But it is kind of like a commitment. So
yeah. So this is a good it's not really a question, but I'll read it anyway. So from Carmen, she says, I've had people ask me um about I think this is in regards to asking her to design or to use products that I don't even have on my channel. I just assume they are spam. So Carmen, does that mean that like maybe some company has said, "Hey, would you like to craft with our products?" even though you've never crafted with their product before? Um, are those have you had that happen with you, Danny, where um
I've had a
somebody
few, but they weren't things I was interested in, so I turned them down. So
okay. So it's not always spam. I mean, you would want to do your research to see if it's a legitimate company. Um, but it can happen, Carmen, with companies that are like less well known, but you also have to be wary that because sometimes there are companies that do the knockoffs. So you just want to make sure you're not in like associating yourself with that type of company. But there are some legitimate companies. They're just small and they're not part of the mainstream. And and so you might get those offers even if you've never used their products a day in your life. Um, so Alicia says, I get people reach out to see if I will share their tools. Yeah. Oh, like screwdrivers and leaf blowers. Oh, that's interesting.
that's different.
Okay, so I do want to put this out there as a oh dang. Yeah, Alicia, you should not have ignored them. Reach find them again because we're going to start our club. um I I think that I don't know how weird this is to all of you other crafters, but for content creators where monetizing and making money at this is a goal. I've heard some people, I haven't seen it yet in the craft community, but in other like live stream content creators on YouTube, in other spaces, non-crafty spaces, like they take sponsorships from weird things outside their community things, like a leaf blower or a screwdriver. the the Alicia is so they'll like read. It would be like a commercial. It's just like some like a company paying for a commercial in the middle of a sitcom. And so basically, they're not looking for you to necessarily work it into your crafting or work it into your channel's content. They're more just looking for the mention to say, this video was sponsored by ABC Hardware, so whatever it is.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on if that's something you really want to do, if that's how you want to make your money, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've determined I'm not good at like making money from things. So I'm really good at spending it. So
Yeah, right. I know. I think it's a side hobby of all of us crafters is spending. Yeah, so Kim, I agree. It's really important to support, genuine, authentic craft companies and companies and places that just very blatantly steal designs. It hurts our community, and it hurts the companies that we love. So I understand that there may be you know designers who maybe not they don't do the due diligence because it's hard to know. Like, there's no way any individual can know that something is another brand's product, but some of these companies, when they're marketing, I mean, they take the package, they don't do anything to obscure the original brand.
And they steal design team members' cards to promote it. I've seen my
Yes,
cards on some of them, and it's just frustrating.
I've seen that too. Yes, and watermarked and everything. Like, they
They don't
don't
try
even
anything.
try. Yeah.
Nope.
So sometimes it's very obvious, and then other times maybe not so much. But that's totally a discussion for another time, I guess.
Yeah.
Copycrafter asks, do oh, this is a good question. Do design teams allow AI, for example, ChatGPT, to assist with wording in posts? So AI, yet another new
I
tech
have not
thing.
had it. Yeah, I haven't had it brought up in any of the design teams I'm in currently. I don't know how that's going to go. I'm all for things that'll help us write things because I stink at that, like marketing type, but I haven't had it brought up yet.
Yeah. Um, I think that if I haven't heard of a team that has either like gone either way, really teams don't micromanage how and what tools you use to fulfill your obligation. So I'll just say that at the outset. I've never heard of a team or been on a team where it was like strictly dictated, like you need to use XYZ. I mean, templates and stuff like that, yes, but things to do our job, like they didn't really say you have to use this software or,
Mm-mm.
whatever. Um, Besides if like we had to post to their blog and they use a very specific blogging platform, other than that. But I would say though that like AI feels like it's here to stay, and so if it can help you do the things that you need to do faster, great. But I don't think you can leave it unchecked because I've put stuff into Chat GPT and it's come back with stuff that was like, no, I'm not gonna post that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, so I don't really. The other thing of it is, if you've used ChatGPT, you probably recognize this. It has one voice. It has its own voice. I can't always tell, but I can see that if just when I'm asking it to like help me write a newsletter, for example, when I email out to my newsletter, it's always kind of the same format, very much the same language. So it's always got its own voice. And then now that I've used it, I can actually see and recognize that when I see it in product descriptions elsewhere on websites and stuff like that. So I would say that one of the things about being um, a person who creates content creator, is a lot of what makes these live streams fun is the authenticity of it. And when you are writing something in your own voice and offering your own perspective, only you can do that. And AI can't really write in your voice yet.
I was going to say yet.
So yeah. So I would say that, definitely use it just to kind of spruce things up a little bit, but I feel like you still want to maintain your own voice and make sure that it's something you would say, because no one else is going to necessarily know you use ChatGPT to generate that and it's your name that's next to it. So you want to make sure that if you're going to use AI or anything similar, that it's if you're posting it publicly, you want to make sure that it's something that you're comfortable with being associated as coming from you. And so don't use it unchecked. I would be my advice.
Yeah.
Um, Alyssa says, I've been using a bit of AI lately to help with intro paragraphs. Yeah, for titles and videos, thanks to Crafty Friends. Yeah, yeah. I for sure think it's a good tool. If it helps speed things up a little bit, or like left to my own devices, I would say the same words. Like I use the same adjectives a lot. So just helps to kind of, put the put a little bit more variety in my writing. Um oh, hi Lala, welcome. Um so really really fast. Oh, try Gemini. It has very different voice. Okay. Um Something to try out. So folks, Gemini, another sort of AI chat engine for folks who want to try that out. Great questions. Keep them coming. So moving right along. Oh wait. Are we? Why is that my last slide? I think that might
I
be
don't
my last
remember.
slide, but yeah. Um. Oh, I know what those were. Okay, so that actually might be my last official question. And so if there are more questions for Danny, definitely pop them in the at the top. You'll see the drop a question for Danny. So thanks for putting questions there. It's been really helpful to kind of see them, even though I can't pull them up on screen because StreamYard doesn't let me do that, but it at least helps me to identify and not miss your questions. So that's been really good. Um, Bonnie says, "What is Gemini?" It sounds like it's a AI chat kind of bot. Oh, but owned by Google, run by Google. Good to know. So the I guess the thing that I wanted to dive into a little bit more because you just have a very unique perspective on this. Um, do you feel like these days, like, because you kind of mentioned there are people who have kind of come and gone, in the crafty world, and so would you say that, and some people dropped like all of their design teams, and they just don't do it anymore, and you're kind of finding that balance yourself also. Um, and I kind of asked this a little bit before, but like if somebody enjoys crafting, um, is design teams the way to go in order to get more connected in this community?
In the past, I would say 100% because that was kind of the only way to kind of get out there. Nowadays, with social media and stuff, I feel the crafty community, we kind of all embrace everybody. So I don't feel that it's the like end all way to get like your stuff seen or whatever you want, what your goal is. Um, but yeah, back in the day, 100% design teams would be a great way to get your name out there, share your stuff and everything. But now with social media, I don't think it's a necessary thing, really.
Yeah. So why
I don't know.
should somebody join a design team? Because we've made it sound like it's a lot of work, it's like a job. um, like what's a good reason to join a team when you can like be a fan and still be very connected to that company, connected to other crafters, and not have all of that extra work that comes with
Right,
especially since we didn't really touch on those, but especially since it is like a job, but not one that you get, most of the time cash compensated. Your compensation's
right.
usually just product. There are exceptions to that, but
Right.
like,
Again, I think it's what you want to make out of it. Because you can join companies that have the affiliates. So if you're promoting their products a lot and you have a platform that you can share those links on, there is the potential for that income. Um, there is sort of a sense of community with a design team ish. Like not every team is going to have that, but I have been on teams and I am on teams where there's a sense of community, I guess, a little bit more than just the crafty community. And if we're honest, the free products or discounted products is a nice perk.
yeah, for sure. So Patty, I see your question, and I'm gonna ask it, but then I'm also going to just say maybe follow Danny to find out. So, Patty's question is, what design teams are you on now? So I think the best way to know that is to follow Danny, her YouTube channel. I've been popping links on here in the chat, but there it is on screen. So Danny is Danny's Dreams across all of the socials. So whether you are on
And you can see
um,
my sign back there, Danny's Dreams.
yeah. So she's got a YouTube channel so you can catch some of her DT makes there. She has her Instagram where you'll probably see all of her DT makes on
Oh, all the
Instagram.
design team makes, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
yeah.
you don't do video for every team that you're on, or do you?
Not for every team. I'm trying to showcase most of them, but
Okay.
it has been very freeing to not like I do my Saturday showcases for cards that don't have like their own video or whatever. So I
Yeah.
also did want to say too, if you're not looking to do like a company design team, there are challenge design teams kind of. Like I will say, I am on the sheet load team with Crafty Al. So it's, you don't really get anything except she's helped my channel grow immensely. I mean, it's just kind of like, and it's just fun. Like I said, I love sketches. So the sheet load was perfect. So there are different types of teams too. So one style might not always fit you, but another might.
Yeah. Um, and the main reason why I don't want to like answer your question more directly, Patty, is we're just trying not to say any company names during these streams because we don't want any, and we don't want to go into that rabbit hole. So,
No,
best way to
no,
to know, who Danny's designing for these days is just to follow her on all of the socials.
yes.
And so Copycrafter says, are there any quote smaller content creators that you enjoy?
There are. I don't know offhand. I'd have to have like my YouTube open to see, but I do follow quite a few. Um, yeah, I follow so many people. I don't know because, like I said, I stay home, so I spend way too much time on all the social media. So, but I do, and I have to say that sometimes I enjoy those a lot more. Um, I used to really enjoy like Jennifer McGuire, and I may think she's talented and amazing, but I just sometimes I just can't do her videos anymore. So it's all a personal preference too.
Yeah, I feel like these days, you know, if you have a point of view, if you have a passion for crafting, just start sharing it. And if your goal is to make it onto a design team, you'll get noticed. And like Danny said, maybe try out for like a challenge blog because I think oftentimes those, I don't know, is it harder? Okay, I have this conception that it might be easier to make it onto like a challenge blog team um because there's no like cost for them to like send product out. I mean,
True.
there's still limited spots, so it's still hard in that sense, and they are still looking for whatever they're looking for to expand their challenge. But what are your thoughts on that? Is it easier or harder or the same really to get onto a
It
challenge team?
depends because there are challenge teams that are put out by like challenges by like companies. And so you
Mm,
would still need to use like their products. There's also just challenges just to challenge, which again, that you don't really necessarily get anything, but the exposure. And it can be easier, but it also depends because back in the day, we had to comment on every single entry or whatever. And so now I don't know that that's necessarily it. You usually are given like a certain percentage that you have to do, like a certain, like maybe you do every other, or you do all the odd comments, like if they're numbered one through whatever, you do all the odds or whatever. So it's kind of a trade up. You may not have to, create as many projects, but you do have to spend some time commenting and they still want you to promote it and all that stuff. So,
right, right. This is a really good point. So Delise, hi friend. So Delise says, or join a hop. And this is something that I've seen more and more of because it's almost like a design team. I mean, I know Delise, you might not call, the hop that you run a team, design team strictly, but it is. I mean, you set a theme, everybody crafts to that theme, and then everybody posts their project. And there are lots of what I've seen is mostly Instagram hops, but these are kind of collaboration hops and like throwback Thursdays and technique Tuesdays and Wednesdays are like something to do with the blocks, I think. And then
oh,
Delise
wood
runs
block Wednesday.
yeah, I was like, what's the W in Wednesday? Wood block
Yeah.
wood block Wednesdays. And Delise runs this or that as her weekly hop, and so it's kind of like low key, and usually like if you see one, read the text and it'll just say if you want to be a part of this, here's who to message, and then you get to be a part of it. so so then you can pick and choose like when you participate. Like at least the way Delise runs hers, it's gonna happen every week, and you're on the train or you're not on the train. You can decide that, and you can use whatever you want from your stash. But it gets you into this rhythm of, I would say the other thing is if you like to craft like on your own schedule and on your own your own liking in a sense, then design teams, you need to hit a schedule. You need to, post, for the dates that are required, um and sometimes you can choose your own dates and sometimes you can't. Like every team's a little bit different in that way. So yeah, it is a thing. And Copycrafter says, to follow up on what you just said, Danny, that's exactly why I ask. I feel when some creators get too big, their work changes. Um, yeah, I think I think that's fair.
Well, or maybe their
But
goals changed. Maybe they just started out crafting for fun, but then they saw that they were actually making some affiliate sales or something. And so then they want to pursue that a little bit more. I mean, you never really know.
you never know, and I also feel like I don't know, this might just be me, but I also kind of feel like I changed too. And so I feel like in the beginning, I watched a lot of different channels that were bigger because that's what I felt like I needed to like learn from in order to get my channel to grow. And then I just understood at some point that, to something that Danny said really early on, I used to be like a numbers hound as also, like always checking my numbers, always checking my number of subscribers. We'd feel super sad and frustrated when the number went down, because it does, and then super happy on the days that it went up. And trying to make sense of like why that's happening. Like what did I do to make it go down or what did I do to make it go up? And and so I think at some point, I was watching a lot of larger channels to try to understand what they're doing. Um and then I just felt like I just need to have my own voice and I just need to like just watch the things that I feel like are informative and entertaining to me and not like have it be a case study in how to be a YouTuber.
I feel it's so hard with social media not to get drawn into that trap. I
Yeah.
was really bad for a while, and now, I mean, I look at them, but I just take it with a grain of salt, kind of. But I do think we do change. Like, I know next year I'm going to really be focusing, and I run a Facebook group, this and that with Danny's Dreams, I think it is, or and I'm going to be really focusing on using what I have, using my stash. We all know me. I will buy. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to like totally stop or whatever, but like I have dies that have never been used. I have stamps that have never been used. I have so much paper. So I'm going to focus more on using my stash than all the new stuff. I mean, like I said, there will still be new stuff. I'm not going to kid anybody there, but we do all kind of change. So sometimes that just happens.
Yeah. And I think that I mean it's really not about like the how big somebody's channel is or yeah, that's not really what's dictating what I watch, but sometimes you can't help what comes into your feed, right? Because that's usually what YouTube is putting in front of people. So I actually really welcome when somebody's, smaller channels video gets into my feed and I try to watch it to give them, some view hours and, to give them some engagement because it's hard when you're starting and it's hard when if you have a goal to like grow your channel in the beginning days and even now like years into it I still find it's hard and so yeah part of me just thinks okay Jennifer McGuire doesn't need my view.
And that's kind of where I'm at too. Yeah.
So it's like, if I'm gonna spend some time on YouTube, I'm gonna try to help like other creators and um so I think that's really fascinating and I can't really think of too many, off the top of my head either to answer your question as to other small content creators, but if you plug yourself into like Danny's community on Facebook, you'll find that there are other creators posting to her group, and that's a way to kind of meet new designers, meet new crafters, and so let me. I should have done this at the beginning, Danny. I'll pull up your Facebook group, um, and I'll drop a link in the chat for folks who are interested. But
Thank you.
it's so what's up? You talked a little bit about, what's ahead for you next year. So tell us what do we have to look forward to? Is there any sneaky peeks at anything or or
Um,
just anything coming next week, really? Just whatever you'd like to promote. Please do take some time and promote yourself.
um, I'm hoping to get more into a rhythm on my YouTube channel next year because now it's kind of like feast or famine. There's either a ton or there's nothing. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more consistent. I am, there will be one more announcement in the beginning of the year. Otherwise, I'm just, like I said, I'm going to focus on using my stash, just having fun. I'm doing another craft fair March 15th. So I'm kind of prepping for that. Although it's not a lot of 3D projects like I did for the fall one. I'm just going to do more cards. So that's kind of me in the nutshell, I guess, coming up.
Oh, great question. Sorry, I have one more question from Instagram. Thank you to Manly Made Minute, I think. It's all together, so it's hard to know where the breaks are in the words. But the question is, what can a person do on socials to gain a company's interest? So how do you get on the
Use their
radar?
products. Use their products. Make sure you're tagging them. Hashtags don't always work, so make sure you're actually tagging them. And then, like Lynn had said earlier, if they have a Facebook group, join that. Post. I mean, and comment too, because sometimes if you just post and you're not commenting, that's not really a thing. I don't know. Some companies, I think they want to see you interacting. I guess that would be the word. Make sure there's some interaction.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I never really think about that, but that's a good point. I mean, so think about it in terms of like a company. If you were running the company, what would get your attention? So the way there's some mechanics to social media, like Danny was saying. So there's the hashtag, which is like the number sign, and that's good, but not everybody actually follows a hashtag, and so you don't get alerted. You don't get like a little notification that pops up on your phone unless you're actually following it. But like Danny was saying, you have to do what's called tagging the company, where you do the at and then their social media handle. So whatever platform you're on, that might be different. Like, and a company might not have been able to get the same handle on all of the platforms, so you might have to like figure out, but it should like auto complete at some point if you type out enough letters in the company name. And so what you want to do as a just in terms of the mechanics of it is do the at the company name in your little description of your post, but then tag the photo as well, because what happens when you tag the photo is it actually will show up in the that company's profile on the tagged tab. So usually on Instagram anyways, there's like what their profile is, which is what they post to their wall. There's the reels, which are their like little short form videos, and then there's a tag tab, and those are all the photos that they have been tagged in. And so, so if you're doing all of those things on Instagram, that's how you can get onto their radar, because those things tend to trigger a notification to that company that's been tagged. But I think, to Danny's point, um, being a fan, an authentic fan of the company, by not just, throwing stuff out there and like just letting people react to it, but actually engaging in their community, I think makes you an actual name to them.
And also, if they
And
have a challenge of any kind, join it often,
oh,
lot, often.
yeah, that's a really good point. Because I think it just shows, I mean, it's engagement, right? It's and plus you can win something most of the time. So so that's a thing too. But yeah, that's a really great point, because most companies run some sort of a challenge.
Hmm.
And so, if you're participating, I mean, I think most of the time the winners are picked randomly, so they might not explicitly really be looking. But if there's like, because there are some companies that don't hold public design team calls, and the way to get invited, because they'll hand pick their designers, is to be a fan and to, like, I think Danny's maybe number one or two right up there was taking good photos. um because they want, inspiration, and you don't even have to be crafting for 10, 20 years. You could be a new crafter. I mean, they're looking for a range, and you never know what a company is looking for. So don't ever feel like, oh, you're not good enough or you haven't been doing it for long enough. You just never know what they're looking for. They might have a particular style they're looking for. They might, if you're new, they might want your projects to inspire other new designers and get new crafters, because I don't know about everybody, but sometimes I see something like beautifully colored and I'm like, I can't make that stamp set look that good. And I don't know how much of I am almost like 100% anything that Amy Young puts out there is like
See,
90%
she's
her.
my she's my like crafting number one. I've been crafty friends with her probably as long as I've been in this community, and it's been so fun to see her journey. Her name of her blog is 1,000 Sheets of Paper because she used to only use pattern paper, whereas now she colors
Oh,
seams. So that's a crafter that has evolved, like we were talking about, and her style's changed.
yeah.
But oh yeah, she's just magical.
Yeah. So like when I look at anything she puts out, I'm just like I know there is no way I can make that stamp set look that good. And so it just is like so outside the range for me of what I know I'm capable of. And so that's why companies know they need a mix of they need somebody who's gonna show like in expert hands what can somebody do with their products, but they also need their products to be approachable to new designers or new crafters because they're hoping to grow the new people and get new people into this hobby and seeing something that
Right.
like somebody looks at and is like, hey, that looks like fun and that looks like something I can do. And so I think it helps people who aren't super experienced really get into it, I think. um
Christina Holloman said that she'd have to look her up. Amy Young is the owner illustrator of Sweet November Stamps, and she also has a Facebook page, Adventures in Coloring with Amy, or something like that. So she's pretty easy to find.
yeah, yeah, she's I think she's on oh, I'm gonna no, I won't say. She's on several design teams, but there's like two that have similar names, and I always get them wrong, so I don't know if she's on both or one.
She's on Stamping Bella and Hello Bluebird and Purple Onion Designs, I think is what she's on now. Yeah, like I said, she's my crafty like guru. Like
Doesn't
I absolutely adore.
she colors? Doesn't she color for the grading farm too?
Nope, she stepped down from them this year. She used to.
Okay, I'm
Once in
trying to
a
think.
while, like if they have a special kit, if they have a special kit, she'll still do those sometimes, but she's not a full-time member.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Alicia says I didn't know about the tag tab. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Nobody tells you these things, but that's why I'm here
I didn't
is to
know it
share what
either.
I know. So, it's just those things that like you if you know how the platform works, you can make it work for you, even though it is extra things. But if you have that as a goal, then use the platform and all of its extra things to get what you want to get out of it. So so that's pretty cool. So like are you like do you think design teams will always be a part of your life in some way, even though like you've made quite the transition, I feel, from like, you know, blogger. And I remember there was a phase where you really did not like doing video,
I
and now
used
you're
to get
doing
so nervous
videos
and anxious, and
and you're
I'm
live
actually doing
streaming.
videos for I'm doing videos for companies now, which is just bizarre. And I've dabbled in I mean, on my channel, I've done other ones. I've been on Craft Roulette twice, but I have changed. I I think I can say the design teams will probably always be a part of my crafty journey, but maybe not company ones per se, maybe more. I don't know. I don't know. It's
And
just the
I kind of also
it's
feel
just
I
like the
would love
routine
to
I've gone in.
yeah, I would love to also just this is kind of an aside, but I'd like to pick your brain because I feel like you've also evolved on the seller side of things because I don't know if you still have your Etsy shop.
I do, but I haven't updated it. I got
Yeah, and so
lazy.
now you're doing craft fairs.
Hmm.
as your outlet for selling. So what's that experience been like? And
I've
like,
only
would you
done once.
recommend? Okay.
I've only done one. I told myself and my family, because they're helping me, that I wanted to do three so I could make a very informed decision. My first one was wonderful. I mean, I made way more past my goal. Um, I was very pleasantly surprised at what sold. I'd been told years and years that cards didn't sell at craft fairs, and my cards sold. It was the
Yay.
fall one. I had sold a lot of like treat bags and gift card holders and things like that. So the spring one I feel will be a different vibe. I'm going to focus more on like new babies, weddings, graduations, Father's Day, Mother's Day, things like that. I'll have a few like 3D items, but a lot of cards. We just got the official like twirly card stands like you see in the
Yes,
stores.
all your
I got a big one
yay.
and a tabletop one. So I had a lot of fun. I'm a very introverted person. I stay home almost all the time. Crowds exhaust me, but it was fun to talk to people and to show them. But it's something I'm very knowledgeable in, and I like what I create. So it was a little bit more easy than I anticipated. So I'm excited to do the spring and the fall one next year, and then I can decide if I want to continue. As far as recommending it to other people, I think you probably need to do like the same thing. Well, like I went to several of them before I did it, so I kind of
Oh,
gauged what was there and stuff. But then look at the cost of the booth and like if you have to rent tables, and would you have enough like product to get people's interest, I guess. Because I know I've watched somebody recently that said that they had a horrible experience. So I'm sure it varies, area by area and stuff like that too. So
yeah. So Sarah Liz says fall fairs are generally better because people are shopping for gifts. I guess like
yeah,
holiday stuff. Like, but it wasn't really a Christmas craft fair. It was just
no,
held in the
it was just
fall.
like
Okay.
fall. Yeah, it was in October. So I this one's before Easter this year, so I'm hoping to maybe do like some Easter, not really baskets, but like treat bags or something, because
Yeah.
just something to get the people to the table, because then I can usually try to talk to them and show them the gift card holders and stuff like that. So we'll see.
Yeah. Christina says, that's good to know. I've been told the same thing and believed it, so this is inspiring. Um, Copycrafter says, I sell in store and Mother's Day and graduation cards for spring do best for me. Oh, that's a good tip. Graduation cards, that's another good one, Danny.
Yep, that's on my
Money
list.
holders. Yeah, money holders and stuff
Yep.
for that.
Yep.
Cards are my bestseller at almost all the craft fairs I've done. Oh, awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I
Cool.
did craft fairs for a decade before I quit to work on my YouTube channel. I would typically make two times as much at fall shows. Oh, wow. Okay, so that might be good to set your expectations, Danny.
Right. Which I'm kind of approaching them all as if I can at least make back the cost of the booth, I'm golden. I mean, I'm not in it to make like thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, obviously that'd be nice, but it's not realistic. So, like I said, I wanted to do three so that I could really gauge it, and then we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I feel like one of your superpowers is just adaptability and learning and pivoting and trying new things because it seems like you've been in the business of designing and creating and sharing as a content creator for many many years and so you've seen it kind of morph into different phases and same on the retailing side um so do you feel like these days it's I mean, what are your overall thoughts on design teams? Do you think that is there anything you would change about how how they're structured, how they operate, for anyone who runs a design team out there, what they could do to better, besides being organized, but to better,
You
to
knew
make a
what I
better
was going to
experience.
say.
I'm gonna take the easy
Um,
answer away,
yeah.
but
Um, I think to be honest, I mean, the if they're struggling a little bit, just be honest with their design teams. Hey, we're having a little rough patch right here. Could you put in a little extra effort or, communication? But really, a lot of them, for the most part, that I've seen recently, have run pretty smoothly. I've of course heard the gossip, but we don't always want to believe gossip. And what works for me may not work for someone else. So it's all perspective too. So
yeah,
I think that they've gotten a lot better over the years. People have learned the added contracts or agreements, I think, help. And like having a place, like most of them do have Facebook groups. So that's nice to have a place. Like if you do have a question and you can't track down or you can't get an answer from the design team leader or whatever, you can post there and maybe someone can help you. You don't have to wait. Like we used to have to email and wait forever for an answer and stuff. So I don't know. I think it's come a long, long way.
yeah. I think for me that was the thing that I was pleasantly surprised as a positive benefit to being on a design team, because especially the ones who that are an actual like function as a team, and the designers there are very open and accessible and friendly, and so you can feel like you are really a part of a part of a team, and you can get feedback from um and I'll be honest, like I wouldn't do this on like a team wide thing, but for people who are on the team with me, and I feel like I have developed a bit of a rapport with, if I'm struggling with like a particular product, that I need to craft with, I'll ask them, hey, does this look okay? This is what I did. Does it look okay? And I trust them to be honest,
Right.
and give me some feedback like, okay, does it need something? Because I've done that before, and I feel
Right.
like so often, I don't know about you, but like besides my live streams, I feel like I just design in the dark a lot of times, and it's just like my own voice and my own head.
Well, I have the cat
And
here. Woo.
I don't know if you're like, your cat, I think, is very interactive in your space, so maybe your
Very.
cat is very useful. But yeah, I do feel like a lot of times it's helpful to have somebody else to kind of bounce ideas off of.
Well, and depending on what team you get, what company, like you might get products you have no idea, or, and you can reach out and be like, hey, I don't even know an example, but like I got this, I don't know, it's for example, like dye. Does anyone know actually how this works? I mean, there's
Right.
some benefits there. Because
Yeah.
sometimes when you're the first person to get it and you have to create something to share to promote this company, it's like, I don't want to mess it up. What am I doing?
Right, right. Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to ask you earlier. I just totally forgot. So, you talked a little bit about like like that you're not good at selling. And that's sort of why you didn't do or continue to do stamping up. But a lot, so how much, because a lot of what we do as design team members as a kind of, you know, why we exist is to help promote, which is, would you say that's the same thing as selling, or would you say it's different? Like, how does
I
that sit
think
with
in
you?
my I think in my mind it's different because it's not for me. I'm promoting that company and I want to do my best for them. I
Right.
just think it's different. Oh, my earbuds are dying, just so you know. Um, but so I just think it's different. When it's for me, like it's going to impact my income, I'm horrible, but I can promote the heck out of someone else. But generally, especially these days, I love the company. And so it's easy. It's not like it's really like selling.
And I do think that that's like an important factor, and you said it in your advice, is to love the company, because it makes all things easier, right? Like it makes it
Yeah.
easier to
Yeah.
craft with what you're getting. It makes it easier to talk about the things that you're trying to help promote. So, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and with your knowledge and experience, and for being so open about what your experience has been like. I know it's super interesting for me to hear your perspective and the things that you've been through. It's amazing, and it's so rare to get to talk one on one with other crafters, and really have that heart to heart with how their experience has been. So everybody, I hope you will be sure to follow Danny on all of her socials. Here's her YouTube channel. She's got some exciting things coming up for next year. She's going to be focused on, she's going to help us all really craft our stash and be a
Yes.
good reminder and a good role model for us.
Thanks everyone for being
And
here.
yeah, thank you all. And do follow Danny on all of her socials, especially if you want to see the teams that she has teased about but has not told us about. So thanks everybody. It's been a real pleasure, Danny. Thank you so much. Bye everybody.